Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
And today we are going to be talking about a documentary that just came out. It's on HBO. It's called The Cult Behind the Killer, the Andrea Yates story. And so it's kind of a combination of the Andrea Yates story, which we'll get into we'll intro what that is. And if, it was quite a while ago, so you may have never heard of it. You may have just, remember it from many years ago. But also it talks about this cult that Andrea Yates was heavily, heavily influenced by and contributed to the killings. But, this didn't happen in a vacuum. One thing that the documentary doesn't do a really great job of, I don't think, is really highlighting Andrea's psychiatric history. And so I wanted to read something about that. That's kind of part, setup of what actually happened. And then also, like I said, a kind of a summary of her history. So here we go. On June 20th, 2021, Andrea Yates drowned each of her 5 children in her bathtub. The nation struggled to understand how a loving mother could systematically kill her children in apparent cold blood. No crime evokes more intense feelings than a mother killing her own children. There was extraordinary media coverage of her trial in Houston, Texas in 2002. Her defense attorneys, George Parnham and Wendell Odom, entered a defense of not guilty by reason of insanity to multiple counts of first-degree murder with death penalty specifications. The 2002 trial jury verdict of guilty was overturned on appeal. Her second trial in 2006 ended with an insanity verdict. Andrea Yates' early life provides no clues that she would later commit an infamous crime. She graduated valedictorian of her high school class of 608 students. She was captain of her high school swim team and president of the National Honor Society. Upon completion of her bachelor's degree in nursing, she became a highly regarded nurse at MD Anderson Hospital in Houston. She resigned after 8 years upon the birth of her first child. She married Russell Rusty Yates, a NASA engineer, at age 29. Although Andrea Yates was never personally critical of her husband, her best friend, Debbie Holmes, described Rusty Yates as controlling, critical, and demanding. Mrs. Yates let her husband make the decisions for the family. Andrea's mother and Debbie Holmes said that Andrea lost her own identity after her marriage. Mrs. Yates agreed to Rusty's plan to have a large family and was determined to be a supermom. Every witness in her trial agreed that Andrea Yates was a wonderful mother. She homeschooled her children because her husband was concerned that the children might pick up bad habits if they went to public school. For each holiday, Mrs. Yates made handmade crafts and costumes for her children in order to recreate the original holiday for them. Highlights of her psychiatric history. Andrea Yates reported that of her four siblings, 2 were diagnosed with depression and a third with bipolar disorder. After her fourth son, Luke, was born in February 1999, Andrea felt overwhelmed and depressed. She knew through a feeling that Satan wanted her to kill her children. On June 18, 1999, Andrea took an overdose of medication to take her own life rather than risk harming her children. Her suicide attempt led to her first psychiatric hospitalization, June 18th to 24th, 1999. Her second psychiatric hospitalization, July 26th to August 10th, 1999, occurred 5 weeks later after she attempted to cut her throat. Her discharge diagnosis was major depressive episode, severe recurrent, with psychotic features. After a couple months of subsequent psychiatric outpatient appointments, Andrea dropped out of treatment because she was feeling better. In spite of contrary advice from her treating psychiatrist about the high rate of reoccurrence of postpartum depression, Andrea and her husband decided to have another baby. Andrea had 2 additional psychiatric hospitalizations from March 31st, 2001 to April 12th, 2001, and May 4th through the 14th of 2001. After the birth of her 5th child, Mary, on November 3rd, 2000, her 4th hospitalization was precipitated by Andrea filling her bathtub at 4 p.m. She could not offer any explanation for doing this other than, "I might need it." She spoke little, did not eat or drink, and was almost catatonic. During her hospitalization, she acknowledged having suicidal thoughts and was focused on not being a good mother. She was treated with antipsychotic and antidepressant medications. Rusty Yates' mother, Dora Yates, came to visit Rusty and Andrea Yates and the 5 grandchildren in April 2001. When she saw how poorly Mrs. Yates was functioning due to her depression, she decided to remain to help care for the children. In the 5 weeks between Andrea's hospital discharge in May 2001 and the drowning of her 5 children on June 20th, 2001, Mrs. Yates had a number of psychotic symptoms. She thought that television commercials for candy were referring directly to her. She believed that one commercial was saying that she was a fat pig and that she gave her children too much candy. She had a delusional belief since 1999 that television cameras were placed throughout her home to monitor the quality of her mothering. She thought that her mother-in-law was part of the monitoring and that there was a camera in her mother-in-law's glasses. Andrea had also had paranoid ideas that her house was bugged because she saw a van near her home. Finally, she had the belief that the one and only Satan was literally within her. She told none of her psychotic ideas to her family because she believed that Satan would use this information against her and force her to kill her children. She did not reveal her psychotic thinking to her psychiatrist when she kept outpatient appointments in June of 2001. Her psychiatrist discontinued her antipsychotic medication on June 4th, 2001 because of the side effects, but continued her on antidepressants. So this is the state that she was in prior to killing her children. She believed that her children were not developing right intellectually and were not righteous, that their manners were bad. She believed her children would never be right because she had ruined them due to her defective mothering. And this was, we'll talk about this more later, but this coincides with the teachings of this cult leader.
Yes.
Who she had been under the spell of. And, I really feel like Rusty Yates, I felt this at the time and I feel it now, that he really was never held accountable for a lot of things. Like I said, he's the one who introduced Andrea to this cult leader. And then he kind of got bored with the cult and said, well, if you want to keep doing it, go right ahead. And he had all of these things happening right in front of his face. And so much so that his mother moved in because she was afraid for the safety of her grandchildren. And he just kind of went on with his life.
Yeah. I mean, Rusty, he's an interesting one. I was kind of surprised that he works at NASA because he kind of looks at you blankly. Do you know what I mean? It's like, Rusty, do you have deep thoughts at all? I mean, what is going on? Because he seems to be very, I mean, he's probably, he seems to be like, he understands what he can see and everything else he doesn't get because he's so oddly matter of fact about everything. And the fact that your wife seemed to call you a lot saying, you've got to come home right now. You've got to come home right now. Like, because he describes, like we hear all these episodes, like each time it was, I need you to come home right now. Your wife has called you now 4 or 5 times. You need to come home now. She's now been she's been hospitalized several times. I mean,
tried to kill herself at least twice.
Twice that we know of. And again, this is all what's on the record. We have no idea what more is out there or what happened. But yeah, I agree with you, especially after hearing that too, because I just remember watching the documentary, you're like, he just seems so passive and out of it. And there's no passion one way or the other of anger and frustration or sadness. He's so in between. And yeah, he really did not, he introduced her to this and he kind of just let her, okay, just because this is where it was going. You had every sign in the book of where it was going and that's where it went. And it's like, oops. Oh no.
Well, yeah. And he comes on this documentary as if he's just, a bystander who has information to give.
Yeah. Like he's a neighbor.
Exactly. He's so matter of factly talking about these things. And so just to tie this all up for anyone who, wasn't familiar with this case. Finally, one day, Andrea did kill her children, like the voices were telling her, like the thoughts that she was having. She waited till Rusty went to work and her mother-in-law was gone. She knew that, no one would catch her, no one would stop her. And she drowned them one by one in the bathtub and then called 911. Yeah. And, she fully expected to be prosecuted for this. And she wasn't trying to deny it. But she honestly, truly felt that if she did not kill her children, they would go to hell.
Yes.
Because she felt she'd been a bad mother. And in this cult that she was involved with, they had something about how it's best for children to die before they're 12, because then that way they're guaranteed to go to heaven. And all these strange things about children, and talking about how, if children are not going in the right direction, it's better that they die before 12 so that they can at least go to heaven and not have to go to hell.
Well, and 12
she was a bad mother.
Yeah. I mean, 12 is such interesting too, because that's like the precipice of becoming a teenager and pushing back an adult, you know what I mean? And we've seen this, we saw this in the umbrella document. What was that umbrella cult? The guy that, where they put the kids on the thing
people,
and shiny happy. Yeah. Like the Doug,
is it the Duggars?
Yeah, this was the Duggars. It's the same thing, which is like, you need the kids to be subservient. You break them down so that they're so scared and they won't do anything. And that was one thing they talked about in the documentary, was how they, that each of the kids, there was this feeling of like, well, why would the 7-year-old get in a tub and let his mother, why wouldn't there be some sort of instinct to live?
He did fight. He did.
He did. Because
he was the one who was strong enough to fight. And she told the police that as she had to struggle with him, and he was like, "Why are you doing this, mommy? I'll be good, mommy." He knew, like, I think he knew what was happening and the language, and she obviously talked a lot about them being good, and you're not being good enough, and you're being bad, and you're going to go to hell. I'm sure she said all these things to them, so he was old enough to comprehend like what was happening.
Because I remember we meet this guy, Moses, who is,
a stand-up comic.
A stand-up comic now. I was like, that kind of surprised me. I'd like to see that comedy.
Me.
So Moses Storm, that's his name. And so he also, his family, his parents were also disciples of this cult of this guy, Mike. What's the last name?
Michael Woroniecki.
Michael Woroniecki. So we're able to hear his story, which is very similar to sort of what was going on. And he's the one that was, I just remember him saying that, people are really surprised that the kids didn't, what's going on here? How could she have done this? And that he's like, there is this, you just learn to be compliant. You're so used to just doing what you're told. But this is the exact same thing is no matter what you do, you're going to be bad. No matter what, because there's no way to win. In Michael's religion, in this cult or whatever he wants to call it, you're always going to be bad. Everyone's always going to be bad, always, except when they are completely subservient to the husband or the problem is that you can pick up anything throughout the day and say, well, that's bad, or that's bad. That's right. It's like you're walking a minefield constantly. And so I can't imagine what that's like. The amount of anxiety she must have felt, the kids must have felt, all of it, just every single day. Am I doing the right thing? Am I doing the wrong thing? Am I going to go to hell? Am I not? And there's, it's very scary for kids to hear this. You're going to go to hell for eternal damnation. I mean,
yeah, because you didn't put your toys away or, So this guy, Michael Woroniecki,
this guy's a real winner too. This is the other part too, is sometimes, you see the David Koresh's, you see some of these guys and you're like, okay, I think I kind of get this. I understand why people are following you. This guy is such a tool. He's such a loser that you're kind of like, really? This guy? Okay. All right.
Yeah. So he's the one who's made up this concept of, the 12-year-old children and the children. And if your children will go to hell, this is his own imagination. His ideas.
Yes.
And somehow Rusty hooked up with this guy early in their marriage.
Yeah.
And
wasn't he on a college campus? Isn't that part of it? Like that he would recruit people at college, which is very common.
Yeah.
For
Rusty
cults.
met Woroniecki in high school or college. They're not sure. But yeah. And then Moses's mom, actually, Michael is her uncle. So that's how they got hooked up with him. I don't think he had a huge following.
No.
But the following that he did have, he really wreaked a lot of havoc, obviously.
Yes. And they seem to financially support him too, which they didn't talk enough about. Because I'm curious if the Yates family ever gave him money, because we meet someone else who gave him money.
Right. So, Moses's mom, she got pregnant very young, unmarried. She had a lot of shame. And Michael told her, if you want to get rid of that shame, you need Jesus.
Yeah. And
so then Moses was born into this cult, this mini cult, like if you want to call it that. And then they also talked to this guy, David de la Isa, who also got caught up in the cult. He said he was attracted to Woroniecki because he was a tough guy and he was calling out other like televangelists. And I don't know, that David's story was so boring. I was just like, he could have been cut out of this documentary.
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, he's not as dynamic or interesting as maybe some of the other people, but I mean, I thought his story was interesting because we got to hear it from someone who wasn't born necessarily in it, but how, right? Like, again, there's a formula to this where David met Michael in college. And and David also got one of his best friends involved too. And so, and what happens and how deeply you get into this and how, this person is promising you something that we all want the answers. We all want to know what's the purpose. We all want these answers to we all want peace. And so this person who has the keys is just constantly dangling it in front of you. And so it was kind of interesting to hear like how that he got so hooked on that, like to the point where he quit his job to go, basically pray to God every day. Because Michael said, your work is getting in the way. Well, who cares about your bills?
Yeah,
who cares about how you're going to support yourself?
Yeah, you need to spend more time
praying to God,
evangelizing or whatever. But yeah, you know what this guy reminds me of, this Woroniecki guy, is that like if you go to the downtown sort of shopping area, touristy area of any city.
Yes,
you'll find these guys who are just they'll have like a sandwich board over them talking about Jesus saves, repent for your sins. And they're out there with a bullhorn, like yelling at people and telling them you're going to go to hell if you don't do this and that, and talking about killing babies and abortion. Like, this is what this reminds me of.
Yeah, no, he totally reminded me of someone that would be in downtown San Francisco, like right on Market and 4th. And there was, I remember there was one guy in San Francisco. I think that guy had been there a good 15, 20 years. I saw him so often. And he would hold a sign, and it was the same thing. Jesus lives, like all this stuff. And then one point it was like, impeach Clinton, and it was the 2000s. It was just a little bit like, we're a little late here for this, I mean, you're not even current, update your sign. So yeah, no, there is some, and he's antagonizing people. You see Michael like antagonizing people in the street. We've all been there. We've all seen that guy, and who's just, I swear to God, he's got his wife there and maybe one other person, and he's ranting to nobody. Nobody. Yeah,
but sure had an impact.
God.
Yeah, and he had this bus that he traveled around in.
Yes, the buses, yeah.
And he would say crazy things like only 8 people are going to heaven.
Yeah, and he and his wife, they have 6 kids. So there's 8 of them there.
So it's already full.
So yeah, that was the other part of it too. What I didn't understand is they were all these people like David, they were all like, well, I was hoping to be the 9th. I was hoping to get in there. I was hoping to do that. It's like, well, but if there's 8 of them and there's only 8 spaces, isn't this a losing proposition?
Yeah. Well, and then Rusty said, and I don't really believe this. I don't believe anything Rusty says. He says that he lost touch with Michael, but told Andrea if she wanted to, to ride with him, basically that was her choice. And then, of course, she did. She stayed, listening to him, started withdrawing. She, didn't see, she was faltering. Like, he's describing how she's kind of breaking down and the kids were kind of scared of her. And, that was the beginning of the end. That was the beginning of her decline into just total mental illness. And then Rusty says he didn't think that she would harm herself. Did you go to any of these doctor's appointments with her? Did you go to her psychiatrist? What did anyone, when she was hospitalized in a psychiatric hospital, did anyone tell you anything, give you any information? I mean, this guy, we see you, Rusty. We see right through you. This is a bunch of bullshit. He acts like he had no idea what was going on.
Well, so I will say that this is what you just read, that her doctors at these hospitals were saying, you need to keep up with treatment. You need to keep up with the medication. That's what I really wondered, if she would get well, she would get on medication, she would stabilize, and then she would get back home. And Rusty would be like, you know what, you really don't need those meds, or that the meds somehow are not. So
she's not taking them, and he's not making sure she takes them. Obviously.
Yeah. Or something's going on here where and he that's the thing is that your wife has tried to commit suicide twice. She's home alone with your children, and you're not even going to check up on her to make sure that she's still going to her appointments. I mean, it's pretty unbelievable. But that also sounded like, I just want to say, I put this on Rusty, but also it sounds like this is also a problem with our insurance system and a lot of other things, because again, it sounds like insurance was like, okay, 28 days, a month, here you go. Bye, Andrea. Good luck with that. And that is very, very common, where insurance companies, and I swear to God, the people that work for these insurance companies that co-sign all this stuff, they are going to burn in their own special hell, because my guess would be is that I'm sure the doctors were like, she can't go, but we have to let her go because her insurance is out. And so now we have to do day treatment or IOP. And we know that most likely she's not going to follow up. That's the thing. People are at their best when they're in the hospital. Like you want as much inpatient time as you can to kind of get the person as solid as they can. And I've said this about addiction, alcohol addiction, same thing. It's just enough time to to get sober, to get clean, but not enough to really figure out what's going on.
Yeah. And look, they had good insurance. They had NASA insurance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the best that she could get.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's
all they
a
could do
big
for her.
problem. Big problem.
Yeah.
Well, so I just want to say one thing about this, Michael. So what is so telling about all of this is all of a sudden Andrea commits this crime. It starts to come out about Michael. People start hearing about Michael and hearing about the cult, and people start reporting on it. So apparently Michael did he call Moses or Moses's mom? And that he was kind of running scared. He was worried that he was going to get brought up on charges. And so apparently he called up Moses's mom and was like, hey, what's up? And apparently he was really nice. Like Moses was like, he was never this nice. He was nice. He was compliant. To me, that means you knew exactly what you were doing, Michael. You are not crazy. You knew what you were doing. Because if you then knew that you needed to placate, and because if you really believed all this, then you would, through your convictions, go and testify and say, no, this is what the truth is. No, the minute you got caught, you were like, uh-oh, I got to do damage control. That to me, that is guilt. That is, you know what you're doing, Michael. And so the fact that he's, again, I think it's such a slippery slope. Like, I don't know what charges you can bring on him because, I think, right, this is partly a free speech issue. And he never directly, I don't know, did he? He never directly said to her, this is what you need to do. But he did imply it over and over and over again.
It's implied because that's his mantras, the stuff about the children and the children going, that if you don't, it's like if your children falter, and this comes up towards the end of the documentary. This was introduced into evidence at the second trial, maybe the first trial, but for sure the second trial. They introduced this kind of newsletter thing that people put out. And it was called...
It is the saddest newsletter I've ever seen.
What was it called? It was called The Perilous Times.
The Perilous Times. Oh
Perilous Times newsletter.
And I'm sorry. And it is so sad looking. I mean, it's literally Michael wrote it and then went to Kinko's and photocopied it.
Well, and he draws all these pictures of children who look like they're dying or been beaten or something, like very, very disturbing. And so it says in this newsletter that was introduced into evidence, unrighteous mother equals unrighteous children who are going to hell. And that sums up his whole doctrine and philosophy. Yeah. And she bought into that, hook, line, and sinker. And, okay, so why did she think she was a bad mom? Who was telling her that?
Oh,
Who
interesting.
was
Rusty?
Yeah. Rusty, perhaps. I mean, yeah. Oh, what the kids are misbehaving. Okay. Now, mind you, she has postpartum depression, and the doctors they recommended after they had, 2
the
or
fourth
3 kids. Yeah, they recommended she not have any more children because there's a 50% chance of relapse, and that she could harm herself again. And, but then Rusty says, well, but the worst that could happen was, she'll get a flu. He called this a flu a couple times. He referred to her mental illness as the flu. She'll get the flu and they will treat her with the same medications. Simple enough. That's what he said. Simple enough.
Yeah. Bing, bam, boom.
So if that's how he's treating, he's dismissing what the doctors say, and that's his attitude. His attitude at home must be horrible. Like, why is the house dirty? Why isn't my dinner ready? Why are the kids, not clean?
Behaving.
Why is that? Yeah. I mean, so where did she get this idea? She was a bad mother.
Yeah.
It had to be from him because she was isolated in her house.
Yeah. Well, and they lived on a bus for a while. They were living on a bus. I was like, oh, dear God. So, yeah, she's got 5 young children from 7 to 6 months. They were on a bus. At least they got off the bus and now they're in a house. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, and we've talked about this in the past, like coercive control here that was happening that Rusty's not, that no one's talking about, which is there's the one level of control that Michael has and Rachel, his wife. They're writing her letters, planting these seeds. But I agree with you that I think it was a 1-2 punch. I really think that either Rusty was bitching and moaning, or he was so passive that then or didn't care or checked out, that she then thought, okay, this is what I need to do. I need to bring my husband in, because a big part of this cult, like all of them, are always about the wife completely submitting to the man.
Mhm.
And we hear from Michael's wife, who is just so proud that she submits to Michael.
Mhm.
And, that she says this is her safe space if she's not submitting to him, if she's not listening to him. Because this is the other part of it too. It's really misogynistic that we are the sinners, that we have this sin, and that men need to kind of contain us, or our sins will just, right? And he talks about the witches and...
Yeah, I was just going to say, he admitted, he said he doesn't agree with this now, but he did then. He agreed with the cult's, ideas about controlling women, and they called women witches.
Yes.
Women are wicked. And the submissive role of the wife. He admits that he believed in all of that at one time, but he doesn't anymore. Well, when did you stop? After Andrea killed your kids?
Yeah. Oops. I better stop believing in this.
This has gone too far. This witch thing. Maybe we better roll this back.
But what was it? It was witches and something. Because the whole thing was that men needed to be super masculine, which I always find that very interesting because Michael really relied on being this really masculine guy, even though you're kind of like...
He really wasn't.
He wasn't. He was such a douche. But he was such a loser. I'm sorry. This guy was such a loser. Like, you're just like, get a life. So,
he's not even attractive.
No, that's what I said. That's what I said. He's not David. He doesn't even have some magnetism. I mean, at least Charles Manson, they were all high. There's no, what is it with this guy? But, I was going to say, but he talked a lot about, he hated passive men. So the men needed to be, but he kept talking about that witches and I forgot the other phrase, witches and something. And that this was this dynamic and so that women, we have all this sin, we have all these bad thoughts, we do all these bad things so that we need to be controlled. Psych Legal Pop, we'll be back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
It's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Oh, my God.
Our husbands, men, but I think that another big theme of this is about motherhood and the pressures on women in terms of motherhood. And we've talked about this before of if you're a mother and you don't reinforce and say over and over again, I love being a mother. Being a mother is the most important role in my life. Being a mother is the thing that makes me as a woman, you're somehow seen as bad or less than. Even to say my children are just as important as my career, or I value this and that together equally. I mean, it feels like this tremendous amount of pressure. And if your kid is not doing well, and I've been there, you do feel like the whole world is looking at you, judging you, wondering what's wrong with you, that your kid is struggling.
Well, yeah. And then she has the added pressure of these men telling her, you're not doing it right. You're not living up to whatever, this role you're supposed to fulfill. But, I mean, and a lot of this documentary is Rusty just going on and on and on about how this is all out of out of his control. And God, he never got any professionals involved. It was only, she'd end up hospitalized because of some, horrible crisis. But on a day-to-day basis, like we said, he's doing nothing to help her.
Yeah.
She's going in and out of treatment, but she's being discharged because they have to. And she's still very, very sick. And these kids are unsafe. They're not safe at all. And he just gets up every morning and goes to work.
Yeah.
And he thinks that nothing bad is going to happen. The way he's talking is like, well, what's the worst that can happen? She has another breakdown, or she gets the flu again. I can't believe he keeps calling her psychiatric condition the flu.
Yeah.
And then she'll just get some medicine, go back to the doctor, get some medicine. It's no big deal.
Because as terrible as this sounds, I think that for him, the idea of her dying or her committing suicide isn't so bad. Do you know what I mean? It's almost a little bit like, because it seemed like really what she was showing us is how suicidal she was. She wasn't showing that she wanted to harm the children. I know this was her thoughts and all of that.
Right. But nobody really knew.
How that this was going to get focused on the kids. And so there's this part of you that's like, Rusty, do you not really, you seem to be pretty passive when it comes to whether or not Andrea is going to live or not.
Right.
Which brings me to another theme that we've also talked about, which is just the way in which we treat women's medical issues, mental health issues, right? Like, because if something happens to women, if it's connected to menopause or birth or anything like that, God knows.
That's your problem.
That's your problem, lady. You got menopause, you're sweating at night, you're this and that. Good luck to you, lady. Oh, wait, you have erection problems, guy? Let me make you a chewable one so you can chew it.
You can just pop it in at any time.
You can pop it in and it be ready to go. You. And you can get strawberry, or maybe you can get this. Like, this is where we're at in our culture. I'm sorry. Yes.
Women can't even get, we can't get shit unless we pay for it go to some fancy doctor and pay a bunch of money to get hormones. You can't go to your local HMO and get shit.
Yeah.
You just can't.
No. But God forbid, some man can't get it up.
Yeah.
The whole world is just...
pull out all the stops.
like, whoa, thank God this guy got it up. This weirdo over. No, please. The women are so thankful. But the thing is that, and I've had a lot of clients who have struggled with, I've seen this with postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, and also PMDD, which is premenstrual, where it's essentially 4 or 5 days a month. You're just like,
right, you're incapacitated.
You're struggling, and then you're like, oh wait, I'm fine. I'm fine now. And so part of this is the way our culture sees this and how it's treated. And so there's this incredible pressure on Andrea to be the perfect mother, to be this the perfect person. But all the things that made her a mother, the hormones and the chemicals and all of that, are creating this mental illness. And it's like, okay, the illness now killed the children. And it's like, so now she's evil. Do you know? It's like, it's this bind that she's in. It's this thing where it's like, something was going to happen. She was stuck. It was either these kids or her.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why she was trying to kill herself.
Yes.
She was trying to stop herself from killing her children. So she'd rather kill herself than be forced to this, these whatever is telling her in her brain to kill her children. And so this brings us to another issue in the case, is that at the time, and I don't know how this would be covered in the media today, but in the media crucified her.
Yes, she was. And absolutely.
It was, even Oprah was kind of like, like, how could a mother do this? That was the whole thing.
Yeah.
How could a mother kill all of her children? And there was some lip service given to the psychiatric issues, but not a lot. And even Rusty would come on these shows. I think he was on Oprah, and talking about, again, poor Rusty had nothing to do with this. Like, how could this happen? This poor man. And the media coverage of it. And, she's in Texas, in this very conservative area,
Yeah.
a very religious area, and people are just crucifying her. And there was they showed a video of one interview where actually Andrea's mom and brother,
I saw that,
Larry King, and they were trying to give, a different side of it, but that was very little. It was mostly just portraying her as, she must be a monster, because what mother would do that? And it was it was really sad. And I just remember at the time thinking, why is this motherfucker Rusty like no one's questioning him? What is your role in this? You lived in this house with them. These were your children, and you get off scot-free?
Yeah. You
had nothing to do with this? I don't think so.
And he's still here today walking around with that same attitude. And so I realize one of the reasons why this documentary and this stuff's coming up is because it's going to be the 25th anniversary of the deaths in June. And, but yeah, 25 years later, Rusty's still like, oh, geez, I wonder what happened. Like, it's still a mystery of, what happened. No, I'm with you. Rusty really, just the look in his eyes, like is there anything behind there, Rusty? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah. I don't think there's much behind the eyes, quite frankly.
So that's why I was like, what do you do at NASA?
Well, he's an engineer. I mean, he's just in his head with, like technical numbers, science, whatever that is. But in terms of like human connection, no, zero. Yes. Zero.
Well, and also, just the problem that we have in the criminal justice system when it comes to mental health, like, despite the fact that we are talking a lot more about mental health, that mental health is being provided for more by people, the things that have sort of evolved since the pandemic and this latest generation who's pro therapy, even still our court system still really struggles with the mental health piece of it, because at the end of the day, there was this argument in court around, well, whether she was mentally ill or not, she broke the law, and
right. But both of her trials. Okay. So let's talk about the trials a little bit. Both of her trials, she pled not guilty by reason of insanity, which has different issues and standards. So the Texas standard for insanity is that it's an affirmative defense to prosecution if at the time of the conduct charged, the actor, as a result of severe mental disease or defect, did not know that his conduct was wrong. And so it hinges on not knowing whether or not the conduct was wrong. Because obviously, the rest of it, the other elements are there. She killed them, she intended to kill them, but was it a result of illness or something else? And so the first trial, they had a jury that is what's called a death qualified jury, because she was being charged. They were seeking the death penalty. So basically every juror has to say, regardless of whether or not they believe in the death penalty or not, the law says that the death penalty can be a punishment. And so will you put your personal feelings aside and follow the law? Now, how many people do you think really do that?
Yeah. Well, and the other part of it too is you're just setting yourself up for either people, because I don't believe in the death penalty. And if you want to be honest with me, no, I'm not going to sentence anyone to death. I don't believe that's right.
Yeah.
So and then people I would automatically get disqualified. So you get a bunch of people that are all pro
right, exactly.
killing somebody
you get a bunch of pro
or
death
you have to lie.
People.
Or you have to be the liberal that lies and kind of sneaks in there to try to change things.
Right. So you do. You end up, it's really biased. It's really, I don't agree with that system. So anyway, the first trial, they deliberated for 35 minutes.
I know, that was unbelievable. People have debated on TV shows about things that happen with housewives. Do you know what I mean? For longer than 35 minutes. Like we have, what have we talked about on this show? We've talked about the sister wives.
Yeah, we talked about Cody Brown's hair for more than 35 minutes.
Hours upon hours, 35 minutes. Yeah. I mean, that means that also was, they went back, they all took a break, maybe they ate a little something.
And took a vote.
And was like, okay, great. Let's all go home.
So they convicted her. They found she was guilty of capital murder, but they did not sentence her to death. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit of a compromise, I guess. Yeah, they felt badly about the whole thing. But so then that case, interestingly, was overturned on appeal for, I thought, a strange reason. So during the first trial, the Court of Appeal found that there was error by one of the psychiatric experts that testified for the prosecution, because during cross-examination, he was asked whether he was a script consultant for the television show Law and Order. He replied that he was, and then incorrectly volunteered that a Law and Order show had aired shortly before Mrs. Yates' homicides, in which a woman was found insane after drowning her children in a bathtub. And so this erroneous statement was used by the prosecutor in the cross-examination of a defense psychiatrist and in closing arguments. So that, she kind of lucked out with that, because that's a kind of obscure thing, but it got her a new trial.
Yes.
So in the second trial, the jury was not death qualified.
Mm-hmm. And they had a really good jury foreman. I like this jury foreman. He was very thoughtful. He took his job very seriously, which is he was not going to do this in 35 minutes.
No. Although it wasn't really that long. I think it was maybe 3 hours. But at least it was, it was 12 hours.
Yeah.
Todd Frank was and he was in this documentary, and he explained the process of what they went through. But I wonder why. So I guess the second time they were not going for the death penalty, because the first the first jury didn't want to impose it. So I guess they scrapped that. They said, okay, we're just going to go straight, not capital murder, but just murder. And then, so it was not a death qualified jury. So I think they got a better jury. Mm-hmm. And, so they were kind of split at first. The initial vote of the second jury was 8 for not guilty by reason of insanity and 4 for guilty. And this foreman, Todd Frank, he's the one who brought out the perilous times.
Well, yeah, because apparently they only put into evidence like certain sections of the perilous times, not the whole publication. So I guess they asked for, can we see the whole publication? Can we see that in, not out of context, but together? And that really convinced a lot of them of like, wait a second, this publication here is telling exactly what's happening.
Exactly
here.
What happened. Yeah. So he was able to explain it to them and pull it all together. And he reminded them about the expert testimony that said that, this cult of, Michael's cult was basically the scaffolding or the trellis on which Andrea Yates' mental illness was allowed to grow. Mm-hmm. And which is a really good explanation and a good visual to think about. And so thank God for this guy. He got them to turn around. But I guess there was one juror who was kind of a holdout and was really like feeling guilty. I think about, well, what about the children?
Yeah.
Like we have to have some sort of justice for these children. So they decided they had pictures of the children or something. And they decided to do a little ceremony, and they did a moment of silence for each of them. And I guess that satisfied this juror. And so,
well, but also I think that's when Todd Frank. He then says, I wrote this on the board, I guess this whiteboard that they had, which is, our job is to weigh the evidence and go by the law. And that he, and he said, we've got to leave it up to God to judge Andrea when she gets there. There's a little bit of like, what is really happening here? And if whatever your religious beliefs are, then fine. Let that play itself out. if that is really what is out there on the other side. Which
that was a good response, because you're not there to decide her ultimate punishment or fate or whatever. You're just there to apply the facts to the law and,
So did you notice too that we see, both trials, but the second trial, she is like comatose.
Mm-hmm.
Like they give this thing of not guilty by reason of insanity. So you would think that someone would be like, oh, good. Finally I can get out of prison and get some help and I'm not guilty. But she was just blankly looking forward, just, she drugged up. I was just like, God. And I looked up where she is now and it's, she's still in a facility and does not want to leave.
Right. She has the opportunity every so often to go in front of a board, sort of like a parole board or something, to see if she's, fit to be released, and she refuses to do it. Yeah.
So she's happy where she is.
But I also too think she feels that she's going to punish herself for the rest of her life because she didn't want to do that. And maybe over time, when she had some medication, maybe she was able to see that, see all these things we're talking about to some degree. And I think at this point, I think she's just punishing herself.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I mean, I was reading this article and one person was writing, well, where would she go? What would she do? And it's like, well, she does have family, it's not like she's
a nurse.
Yeah, no, it's not like she's
job back.
It's not like she's nothing, but yeah, I'm with you. I think it's partially punishment. And I think it's partially like, it's almost like I need to contain myself. Like I can't be trusted. And even though maybe I understand this differently and I'm thinking more clearly, but what I did was so extreme that I can't do it. So yeah, she is still in this, I guess it's a low security mental health facility. They think she'll be there for the rest of her life. And she is just there and does not want to go and ever leave. And I was also curious about her relationship with Rusty because, he was in court the second time around too. He was there when she got the not guilty mental insanity verdict. And it's like, so are you two still talking? Are you in each other's lives?
I doubt
it. What's happening here? Because Rusty seemed to be happy that that's where it went. Rusty claims that he was glad that it got overturned and that she was going to get help.
Yeah, because it assuages some of his guilt.
Yeah, I guess so.
But yeah, and just to clarify, like the reason that, the not guilty by reason of insanity was appropriate here was because at the time, she really did not believe that what she was doing was wrong. And that's the linchpin of the whole thing. She knew she was killing. She knew she could go to jail. She knew all that stuff. She didn't care. She thought that she had to do it.
Yes.
To save her children.
Yes. That she would sacrifice herself.
Right. She sacrificed herself for her children so they wouldn't go to hell and so that they could go to heaven, go to paradise. She truly, truly believed that.
Mm-hmm. The other thing too is Michael's such a loser that he didn't even have a name for this cult. What was the name of this group? Do you know what I mean? It's like, God, at least get some.
There was a name.
At least get some branding together, Michael, and really kind of put this together.
Well, I think wasn't Michael Woroniecki? He was on Good Morning America that was the other guy. David, no, he wouldn't have gone on Good Morning. There's a scene with Charlie Gibson on Good Morning America, and he's...
Oh, yeah, he is. And basically what Michael was claiming was, he's like, he was talking about that guy, David, because after Andrea Yates, this whole thing came out, David, who was one of these other followers, sees this and says, okay, I think I have to say something. Like, I too fell under the, she's not alone in this. Like, she is, it's not just her, that this is what this guy was doing, and I felt the same way. And so Michael sort of takes this whole attitude of like, I barely knew that guy. I met him once, like at a McDonald's for 15 minutes or something. And of course, David has like all of their correspondence. And then I'm thinking, David also sent them money. I mean, how do you explain the wire transfers? Like, if you really didn't know this guy, why did this guy wire you $20,000 over a 10-year period if you two were strangers? So Charlie was trying to push back, but that he's a liar. And again, he's covering up. If you're covering up, what you did was wrong. That's the thing. Andrea never tried to cover anything up. She has never covered anything up. She was very clear on what she needed to do. This guy is going around covering everything. So that tells you he knows exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
Ugh. I wonder where this Michael guy is today. God, is he still on some street corner? Just pop,
I hope he's dead. Yeah. And then Rusty said he found so Michael had these cassette tapes that he would give to his, pretty, I think we've established small group of followers. Yeah. And Rusty said he found one of these tapes in the cassette player after she died. So she had been listening to him.
Yes.
Like right up until the point. Oh, but again, Rusty didn't know. He didn't know. Mm-hmm. Did he ever check the cassette player? He had no idea. I mean, this guy.
Well, yeah. Did you say, what did you do today, Andrea?
Right.
Did you get mail from Michael and Rachel? Because that's the other thing. She was listening to these cassettes. She was corresponding with Michael and Rachel, and they were writing her these really like basically letters of, if you don't do this, if you don't repent, if you blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was constant of, I'm struggling. She's saying I'm struggling with this, and them coming back to, yes, it's there. So if you're struggling, therefore something is wrong with you. You're doing something wrong, which is so dangerous.
And so I don't remember this being discussed, but obviously Michael's whole thing is about getting money out of people. Mm-hmm. So was Andrea giving him money?
We don't know. The only person that we hear about, because I would have liked to hear a little bit more about that. Like what was, because we hear from David that he gave him $20,000 over 10 years, which actually, when it comes to cults, is actually not that much. It was like $2,000 a year. That's kind of what, like $150 a month or something. I mean, it's not that much, but I would think that they all were in some way. I think he was kind of, whatever followers he had, I think they were.
So I'm sure. Usually,
I mean, because he needs to be supported. Right. Because that's why they asked David for money, because he and the family were going to Europe and they needed help paying for it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I think at a certain point, Rusty doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who would give him money. Mm-hmm. So at a certain point, he may have given him some money in the beginning, but, I doubt Andrea even had control over the finances.
Oh, God, no, probably not.
So, I don't know why he was still even talking to Andrea,
Yeah, that's true. Like, what were you because that's true. Like, you need two things. You need them to be subservient, and you need them to be subservient to either give you money or work for you for free. Mm-hmm. So you're right. What were they getting from this relationship with Andrea? But maybe membership was so small. They were like, hey, we got to cultivate Andrea and then try to get some more people going. Like maybe
she'll bring some people in.
Yeah. I mean, kinda, that's partially what I'm thinking.
So it's just so sad because it's just like this perfect storm of things, all coming together. And sad.
It's that. And, just hearing, I didn't know this about her family, like just hearing about all the mental illness that's in her family, like that is a big giant red flag for any therapist. You're like, wait, what? So if you hear that someone has especially anything bipolar or schizophrenia, and if that's a sibling, then the probability is very, very high. And I think that again, it comes back to what we expect of women. We expect women to, grow children, give birth, and then parent these children perfectly without ever, missing a beat.
Yeah. Well, she was, this was more than that. This was just, she was under the spell of this cult. She was mentally ill. I mean, I don't think that just being under pressure to be a perfect mom in and of itself is ever going to lead someone to something like this, but
no, that's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
No, okay. But no. But I mean, I understand what you're saying. I do. I forget what my original point was when I started that sentence. But no, I don't think that's the lone thing that would make someone do what she did. I think that it's just more of this idea of how things were set up from the beginning. There was a little bit of this how were you going to all I think about is like, how were you going to pull yourself out of this? It was almost a little bit like the minute she married Rusty, and the minute, you know, it was almost like her fate was sealed in a sense.
Well, yeah, because he wanted her to quit her job and stay home and homeschool all the kids. And, you know, I don't know how much say she had in that, or if she wanted to do that or not. I find it hard to believe that, you know, someone who's, you know, academically, you know, has always been motivated and had an important job and all that kind of stuff would just be like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to forget I ever did any of that. I'm just going to like become not just a stay-at-home mom, but a stay-at-home and homeschooling everybody all by myself with no help. And,
in a bus.
In a bus, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, dear God.
So, yeah, they eventually moved into a house, but still, yeah. Well, it was a good, you know, documentary. I wonder if I thought I saw. I think HBO might have some more of these like cult kind of, you know, people who were like motivated by killed.
Yeah, this is like because it's HBO, but it's like Investigation ID.
Yeah, Investigation ID.
And then, do you ever notice with the logo, with the thing, it goes Investigation ID, investigate. Then this voice comes on, investigate. It made me laugh every time.
Well, you know, just some breaking news. This kind of related to, so in the Rob and Michelle Reiner case.
Yes.
So today, you know, we talked about this on another episode. I can't remember if it was on the regular show or I think it might have been on the bonus episode. We were talking about the fact that, you know, Alan Jackson had been retained by somebody to represent Nick Reiner, and he had postponed the entry of a plea. And we talked about how he was more than likely going to either challenge Nick's competency or enter a not guilty by reason of insanity plea. So today was the continued arraignment, and Alan Jackson told the court, and I mean, I think he'd already notified the DA and others that he was no longer going to be representing Nick Reiner. They went into the judge's chambers and talked about it for a little while. And of course, he can't disclose why in public. They probably talked about it in chambers. But so now for the time being, Nick is now being represented by a public defender. And then outside of the courtroom, Jackson made a statement that the last thing he said, obviously, he said, I can't talk about these other details, but I can tell you that Nick Reiner is absolutely not guilty of murder.
Yes.
So what I think happened is that they were trying to tell Nick, this is your best course of action. You need to plead guilty by reason of insanity. And Nick probably disagreed with that and said no. He either wanted to just plead not guilty, or maybe he wanted to plead guilty. You know, it could go either way, whatever. And they were like, no, you don't have to do that. You know, you can do this. This is better. So they probably had a disagreement about how to proceed. And so, you know, that's one of the basis for, you know, withdrawing from a case. If you give your client advice and they won't take it, and you in good conscience can't go forward, you know, if they don't take your advice, then you can be relieved as counsel. And that's what I think his comment was about, that he's not guilty of murder because he was insane when he committed the acts. So interesting.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. That's that's your take on it. So that makes sense. I was wondering about that, because I was wondering, so Alan Jackson thinks he's innocent, but he doesn't want to represent him anymore. And I was like, oh, that makes sense, that maybe he's pushing back saying, I don't think there's enough evidence that I did it, or something like that. Maybe he wants to try to just get off completely. I don't know.
I think he's saying, he's saying, I didn't kill them. And maybe, maybe he has a different story. Like they got in a fight. It was self-defense, I don't know. I mean, but he obviously has some different version of, and he probably wants to fight it.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, okay, yeah, I did do it, but I didn't know what I was doing. You know, I was insane at the time. I didn't know what I was doing was wrong, you know, going down that road. So we'll see. But I mean, he's going to run into the same problem with the next lawyer, which then might lead to, you know, his competency to stand trial being put into question. You know, if he can't really understand, you know, what's happening to him, he's not able to cooperate with any lawyers or cooperate in his defense. So,
yeah. Oof. Wow. Well, it's interesting, right? 25 years later, I guess I wonder if the Andrea Yates, if this happened today, how would we look at it? And there's a big part of me that's like, I still think we would be debating the same things. Like, even though we've made some progress in our world, we still really struggle with women hurting their children and mental illness and women and reproductive, like, you know, anything that's got to do with women and mental health and their bodies and all that kind of stuff. I think we still really struggle to be able to get what women go through.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there would be more compassion for her, but there would still be people saying, how could you do that?
Yeah.
You know, how could this happen? And I would hope that more attention would be placed on the husband, the father.
Yeah.
That's just,
of course not.
That just really gets me.
Well, yeah, and he's remarried and he's got a kid.
Yeah. And he's in this documentary.
Yeah, he just kind of keeps bebopping along.
Like he's a victim. I mean, and he is a victim to a certain degree, but he's also culpable in many ways.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
I mean, it's like child endangerment.
That's true. You're right.
If you leave your children alone with their mother, who you know just got out of a psychiatric hospital and has a history of doing this and has tried to kill herself twice. And a doctor said you should not have more kids. You know, she has postpartum, all these things.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're absolutely right.
I think today he might be prosecuted too. Honestly.
Yes, I could see that.
Anyway.
But, yeah. I don't know. I want us to be able to move forward and be better in all of this, but we seem to be stuck in some ways on these same issues. We keep going in circles. So,
yeah. All right. Well, thank you for joining us. And if you like our podcast, please subscribe to the podcast and share an episode. If you like this episode, share it with a friend. You can also give us a 5-star rating and review if you are so inclined. And if you want even more from us, we do have a Patreon where you can get bonus content. So just head on over to Patreon. We're on all the social media platforms, so you can connect with us in all those different ways. And thank you so much for tuning in.
Thank you. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellows wherever you get your podcasts.
When it comes to managing money, forget the hype and look at the results. Bill has $1 trillion of secure payments powering our bill pay tools. Instead of just moving money, Bill is powering the financial operations of nearly 500,000 customers. So stop the guesswork and start scaling with the proven choice. Ready to talk with an expert? Visit Bill.com/proven to get started. And grab a $250 gift card as a thank you. Terms and conditions apply. See offer page for details.
Pepsi Prebiotic Cola in original and cherry vanilla. That Pepsi taste you love, with no artificial sweeteners, only 30 calories, just 5 grams of sugar, and 3 grams of prebiotic fiber. That great Pepsi taste with even more to love. Pepsi Prebiotic Cola. Unbelievably Pepsi.